You are listening to the Patreon Party People podcast for December 2016. If you'd like to hear the latest podcast as soon as it goes up, just head on over to patreon.com/blazehedgehog and donate $1 or more. Hello and welcome to the December 2016 edition of Patreon Party People, my Patreon podcast for Patreon patrons. It is currently 2:19 in the morning on December the 8th, and outside my house right now, it is a nice, warm, balmy 0 degrees, and if you just heard that in the background, the furnace in this room just kicked on, or the furnace isn't in this room, it's downstairs in the basement, but it just kicked on and the blower started blowing into the vent in this room. So if you hear like background noise or anything like that, it's just my furnace running because it is tremendously cold outside. I never really know what you guys can hear over this microphone. It's a pretty sensitive microphone. I paid about, it's not like an expensive, super nice studio microphone where it needs like a mixer and everything like that, but it is a pretty sensitive microphone. When I first got it, it was a year ago? I noticed it was picking up all this ambient, background noise. In addition to the furnace running, sometimes we have noisy pipes. If someone's running water in the kitchen or in the bathroom or something, the pipes that, water flows through them to the kitchen, they come right through this room, and the microphone was picking that up. But there was also a video or a podcast or something I did recently. There's a dog that lives next door. I've complained about him before. He's really noisy. He was actually barking in a recording, and the microphone didn't pick him up, and I don't know why. So I don't know what you guys can and cannot hear, but hey, how you doing? It is Christmas, and boy, in the we'll say 3 weeks since the last podcast, a lot of things have happened. I believe when we last left off, I had just finished a Game Jam entry for a Click Team Fusion Game Jam called Weirder Stuff. And the Weirder Stuff Game Jam, you were supposed to create a supernatural game over the course of October for Halloween. And I got my entry right in on the wire, right on October 31st. Technically, I think with the way time zones work, it might have been a couple minutes after midnight. I'm not actually sure. The rules weren't very clear. They let me submit my game anyway, so, that doesn't really matter. And when I recorded the last podcast, in addition to this being a game jam, it was also a contest, and I was waiting to hear the results of that contest. And, they were supposed to announce the results on November 2nd, and I think I put that podcast out on November 14th, and they still hadn't announced the winners. So, it was nuts and it was weird, but that's kind of Click Team Fusion for you, the Click Team company rather. They, I said this a little bit, they seem a little disorganized, I guess is the most polite way to put that. But literally, within hours of me putting that podcast out, I think it was either later on in the same day or the next day, they finally announced the winners. And, I kind of woke up to this email that said, "You are a winner." And I thought, wow, maybe I won the grand prize. Maybe I won the Xbox One and all the money and all this other stuff. Instead, no, not really. Before the winners were announced, Click Team put up this page of all the entries they had, and right away there was 3 top entries that I picked out that I thought, okay, these guys are the front runners. They were going to pick, one winner and then 4 or 5 runner-ups, but there was 3 games on there that I knew would be like the top 3. And surprise, I was actually like totally right on the money with this. I picked the list almost exactly perfectly. I did not win the grand prize. I won second place, I guess if you could technically call that. I was the first runner-up. The grand prize winner was this game called Tattle and Tale, by this, he's on Twitter as Sinclair Strange. It's this, like this Banjo-Kazooie sort of 2D platformer where you're this guy, and I guess his sister's like dead and a ghost, and in like true Banjo-Kazooie fashion, she like morphs into different things to give him different abilities and everything else. And it's actually like super, super impressive because for like having a month to work on this game, with my game Overbite, I managed to finish like 4 levels in a month because I spent all this time coming up with like game mechanics and enemies and all this, and all I managed to squeeze out was 4 levels. This guy, for Tattle and Tale, he built like a game, like a real game. He built, I think it was 14 levels and like multiple bosses, maybe? I didn't like play tons of it. I played, gosh, like almost probably like an hour of it the day after the winners were announced. But, you know, it is really impressive how much of a game he managed to build in just a month. And it's not like, you know, you don't really feel like he cut corners that much. Levels aren't like super big, but, you know, that kind of works in their favor because, again, you know, it's the Banjo-Kazooie structure. It's not a linear level. It's more like this big open area that you explore and get collectibles and defeat enemies. And there's like Jinjos, if you know what those are. They're kind of like these, you know, 5 hidden collectibles, and he has something like that in there. And it's so impressive how much game he managed to get done in just, was it like 31 days? It was like 33 days, I think I figured. So, you know, definitely I don't feel like bitter or anything. I do think he really did deserve the grand prize for how much work he put into the game. And then, of course, I got second place. I was the first runner-up. And then the third place guy is, oh gosh, I have it written down here. It's a game called Halls of the Occult. And I actually kind of forgot to like download and play it. It's on my ClickTeam account because they put all the games up on like the ClickTeam store. I think I said this last month. And you technically buy each game, but it's for free. It's weird. But they're all on like my ClickTeam store account. As purchases, and I haven't bothered to actually download Halls of the Occult, but I remember looking at the sprites for it, and they looked, you know, impressive enough that I thought, okay, yeah, just based on these screenshots and that logo, you know, this guy is probably going to take third place, and I was right. And I don't really, like, I hate to say it, but I don't remember the other 3 or 4 entries that are below mine. I remember there was another game starring a vampire. There was like a weird Punch-Out clone where you beat up witches that looked, I don't know, it looked kind of clip arty. It was weird, but, you know, I'm not here to debate the quality of the winners. You know, I don't want to put anyone's hard work down because that game jam was probably the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life. I have never worked that hard on anything before. Since then, I've put out what I'm calling the final version of Overbite, but that's not true. We'll get to that later in the podcast. But for all intents and purposes, it is I'm doing air quotes here, final version of Overbite with all the features that I wanted to put into the Game Jam version that I didn't have time to do, like a score attack mode, an extra 5th level, an extra ability, you know, a better ending sequence, actual credits, you know, all that fun stuff. Even like a super secret mode, which if you saw the upload I made last month, I actually tell you all the cheat codes and how to access all the secrets, all 2 or 3 of them. So Second place, being the first runner-up, won me a 7-inch Acer Android tablet. Friend of mine was trying to figure out which one it was, and I think we figured the actual retail value of this tablet was about $120. I forget the specific model, but, Acer has, like, a specific brand of 7-inch tablets, and he figured it was probably their cheapest one, and I'm inclined to agree. But also along with this 7-inch Acer tablet is two $50 gift cards. One goes for the ClickTeam store, which I don't know what I'm going to buy on there because, with all due respect to ClickTeam and the fact that they open their own storefront for people to sell ClickTeam Fusion made games on there, I don't know that there's like a ton of stunning software in that store. So, how I'm going to spend that $50, I'm not sure right now. And then the other $50 gift card is for the Humble store, which means I could probably sign up for 2 months of the monthly bundle, or, there's a Christmas sale probably coming. I can probably spend $50 there, but, even though it's been 3 weeks since they announced the winners, 3 weeks since they asked for my address so they could send all my stuff, I haven't heard anything from them, which at this point is starting to worry me, because about a week after I won my runner-up prize, I sent them an email, and I said, hey, because we were getting weird calls here at the house, right? It's probably not that big of a secret to say that nobody calls the house asking for me specifically. All the people who want to contact me, they contact me on the internet through text on a Twitter DM or Discord or Steam or whatever else, right? Nobody talks to me on the phone, and I'm perfectly okay with that. There was a period of about 3 or 4 days after I got my email saying you're a winner, where the phone would ring, and we screen all our calls. We still have a landline. We still have an answering machine. And what we do is people call, we let it ring, it goes to the answering machine, and then we see who it is, because 9 times out of 10, the caller ID doesn't tell you anything about who's calling. So it goes to the machine, and the answering machine guy picks up. It's this pre-recorded voice. It came with the machine, and it says, thank you for calling. Please leave a message after the tone. This guy, before the answering machine guy starts talking, he asks, hey, is Ryan there? And then he doesn't leave a message. The phone hangs up in silence because for whatever reason, he doesn't leave a message. Someone is just calling the house for me, not leaving a message, not saying who they are, and I'm not going to pick up the phone for a person like that. I'm sorry. There are too many, advertising people out there that want to get you on the hook to talk to you about, I don't know, trying to sell you insurance or whatever, right? Credit cards. So unless a person calls me and states their business, I'm not answering the phone for them. So this guy, he called 3 times, and every time answering machine kicks on, either before the answering machine guy starts talking or while the answering machine guy is talking, he asks for Ryan, and he never leaves a message. So I sent an email to ClickTeam. I responded to their, you're a winner message, where they asked for my home address and everything. And I said, hey, have you guys been calling my house asking for me? Because we've been getting messages from people asking for me, and I want to know if it's you, so that the next time you call, I can pick up the phone and, we can chat about, if it's about the winnings, we can chat about that or whatever. A, after I did that, phone call stopped. B, after I did that, I never got a response from that email. They never, said, yes, it's us. No, it's not us. I've heard nothing in 3 weeks from these guys. And when I sent the email asking them about the phone, I also said, hey, when are you shipping my stuff out? It would be nice to know, when it's coming. And nothing. It's been dead radio silence. So I don't know what the deal is with that. It's a little bit worrying. You'd think that if I had to answer the phone to confirm my winnings, then they would tell me through the email or whatever, because that was me basically confirming that, yes, I hear your phone messages. This is really me. But so far, radio silence. And with it being 3 weeks now, I'm starting to get a little worried. I'm probably going to try and send like another email here in a couple days, just ping those people and say, hey, you've been kind of quiet about the prize I won, and it's been 3 weeks, and I haven't received anything. I haven't received any messages from you. I haven't received any packages from you. Whew, that's weird. Also, in the time since the last podcast, I think I said I was mulling over whether or not I wanted to buy a Steam Greenlight submission for Overbite. I think my stated goal was that I would, I'd put the game up on itch.io, gosh, we're going to go through this again. And if I made $100 from itch.io, then I'd buy the Steam Greenlight Pass. Since then, I hit $100 on itch.io. Half of that was from fellow Patreon supporter Keith. Thank you, Keith. You're a cool dude. Fact of the matter is, I hit $100 on itch.io, and that's really cool. So, after panicking for a little while about my sudden newfound responsibility to submit this to Steam Greenlight, I bought my Steam Greenlight Pass. I put the game up on Greenlight, and as of last night, I have been approved for sale on Steam. I've passed Greenlight. And boy, what a harrowing experience that is. And now I kind of get it, right? I get why certain games, let's say, get up on Steam Greenlight, because it is not hard to make it through that process. It looks hard. You register your game and they give you all these charts and graphs and numbers, and it's like, oh my gosh, nobody cares about my game. Look at all the downvotes I'm getting. Look at, this bar graph here. It's dropping and dropping and dropping, and now it's 0 and nobody cares about my game. And then you get greenlit and it's like, nobody cares about my game, but I'm going to be sold on Steam? Obviously some people care about my game. Here, let me actually log into Steam here on this podcast. Okay, now that I've been greenlit, they actually took away a lot of my stats here, so it just tells me how long I've been on Greenlight and how many yes votes I got. And I got 563 yes votes, which is, quite a lot. More people voted this up on Steam Greenlight than actually downloaded the game from itch.io, which is something. Even though, in the Steam Greenlight description, I say, here's the 5-level demo you can download from itch.io. But basically, what Steam Greenlight shows you is this lifetime stats page, and they have this percentage, okay, that's how close you are to being in the top 100 games on Steam Greenlight. And you think to yourself that, okay, if it's giving me this percentage of how close I am to the top 100, then being in the top 100 must be the golden ticket to get on Steam. That's not true at all. That's not even close to true. I don't know the weird metrics Steam has on this thing, but basically, I think the closest I ever got is I got up to 62% of the way to the top 100. And that was as close as I got, and it started falling after that. And I think by the time I was eventually greenlit to sell this game on Steam, I had dropped to 43%, which is, you're sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it. I'm just not. But apparently no. Apparently that doesn't matter. DiabloHead, who is also a fellow Patreon patron, He told me, because he got a game through Steam Greenlight, that you need between 400 and 600 votes minimum to get on Steam. And, obviously I got 563, so that is the minimum for you there. But geez, yeah, wow. It looks hard to get on Steam Greenlight, but it is not hard to get on Steam Greenlight, or I should say get through Steam Greenlight. 58% said yes, 48% said no, 2% said ask me later. And that's what I needed to get through Steam Greenlight. 971 total votes. In the average, it tells you your ranking on the website, and I guess I hit 4,585th place. So does that mean that Valve greenlit 4,000 other games ahead of me? Man. You get this real new perspective on maybe some of the problems of Steam Greenlight. But yeah, Overbite is going to be a real game that's sold for money, and I guess technically it's already being sold for money, but now it's actually going to be sold for money on a big name storefront, probably the biggest name storefront I've ever been a part of. I've always been, in the back of my mind, I thought, I could make an Android game, I could make an iOS game, because I knew Diablo Head, and he told me that, if I ever made a game, I could use his build of ClickTeam Fusion to build an APK for the Google Play Store or whatever. And I never did it. Because I never felt like I had a good idea for a mobile game or whatever. But now it's real. Now I am registered for the service. Now I am through to the service. I could release the 5-level demo of Overbite right now. I'm not going to do that. My cousin suggested that I put it through early access. Put the current demo version up on early access. And I'm not going to do that either. But, it's weird. I've made it, but I haven't made it. I've been thinking about, how this hasn't really hit for me yet. I still can't really rationalize the fact that I made it through Steam Greenlight. And I think that's because I still haven't really made it, really. I still need to actually make the game now. I still need to, it needs to be a financial success before it's real. And it's not a financial success right now, and it probably never will be a financial success. Let's be realistic here. About 300 people downloaded it from itch.io when it was free, when it was pay what you want. The amount of people that are going to pay $5 for this game probably aren't much, we'll say. But we'll find out. Like I said, on the Greenlight page, $5 is just my ballpark estimate. It could be more than $5, it could be less than $5. It all depends on how I feel about the final product when I get to the final product. The $5 figure was actually pulled out of thin air because Game Grumps played this game called Halloween Forever. Technically it was on Steam Train. I think it was Ross and Barry played it, and it's this cute little retro style platformer. You play as this pumpkin-headed guy. He's got overalls on, and when you push the button, he spits out a piece of candy corn, and that's your attack, is you spit candy corn at things, and the candy corn has this arc, and it's this really short, really charming, really graphically simple platformer / action game. It's probably maybe 6 levels long, maybe 7, and it's $5 on Steam. And you listen to Game Grumps and they say, oh, it's $5 on Steam. None of them complain about that. You can have a nice short game on Steam for $5. And I think, okay, if this Halloween Forever game sells at $5 and they're comfortable with it being $5, then maybe I can get away with selling Overbite for $5. And you think back to like the early days of Xbox Live Arcade and the kinds of games they were selling there for $5. It was like ports of like Galaga and Galaxian and Xevious. These really super simple arcade games that, they're not complex, they're not long games, they're maybe, 15, 20 minutes long. And they were selling for $5 and everybody thought that was okay. So, that's my thinking here for Overbite being $5 is, if it's a tiny little game, $5 is fine. We don't need to rush to the bottom of the barrel like some of these indie games out there that are like, $1.99, 99 cents, whatever. I don't need to go that low. I can price it up a little bit, and $5 will be a comfortably cheap level that, when a holiday rolls around and I put the game on sale, like, a discount of like 50% or whatever, it'll still seem meaningful to have that discount. These are the kinds of things you have to think about when you're pricing a game is, perceived value. Something I learned, I don't want to say I learned it because it was just one of those things you hear and, you internalize and you think, okay, that makes sense. And then you don't learn anything else about it ever again. But it's this notion of like perceived value about, if something is too cheap, then it looks cheap. Then people think, this product is $1, so it can't be very good because it's only $1. You have to price accordingly, to what you want to appear like, I guess. It's kind of like this status symbol almost, where, you're not being elitist for pricing your game high, unless it's too high, of course. But, you have to price your game correctly for the kind of quality you're trying to convey, I guess. I don't know if any of this is making any sense. But it makes sense in my head, let's say. It's all about how you present yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you make a $5 game, it is perfectly fine to be $5. Even if, even if it's not like a complex game or something like that. You also have to be aware of like imposter syndrome and all this. And at this point, I just feel like I'm rambling about stuff that isn't really connected or whatever. But, $5, point is, $5 sounds like a good price, I guess, is what my overall arching theme here is that for the size of the game I'm planning, $5 is probably perfect. It's just enough to where I'll probably, make an okay amount of money on this game, and sales will still be meaningful, and it will still give off the appearance of being more than a cheap game. And I think that's pretty good. Sometimes you have to take that chance. And, if it doesn't work out at $5, then I'll lower the price or whatever. Obviously, you guys being Patreon backers, Patreon patrons, you guys will get, work in progress builds, DRM free versions once it's finished, things like that, if you pledge at the $5 level, of course, because that's the whole early access thing with my Patreon here. And I need to redesign my Patreon page here soon, because it's getting on 2 years old, and some of that text and some of those images are kind of old and out of date. I need to get around to that. But the current plan with Overbite is, now that I've been approved for Steam Greenlight, I feel like I can finally get to work on the full version of the game, which means revamping all these game mechanics, re-examining everything from a different perspective of trying to make this bigger, better game. I think I'm going to take the rest of December off, and then once January hits, then I'll hit the ground running with the new version of Overbite, the full version of Overbite. Gosh, what kind of ideas can I even spoil here on this podcast for things I'm planning for the full version of Overbite? Obviously, more environments. I talked about that in the Greenlight video that's on my YouTube channel. A kitchen, a library, The library one is going to be particularly fun because, think about vampires and vampire books. Think about that connection for a second and the kinds of fun things I can do in there. But yeah, January is when development on full version of Overbite begins. But, I'm so excited right now that, I keep thinking, I'm going to start writing the design document here just to get it all out of my brain. Expect the Steam version of Overbite, maybe fall 2017. That's kind of like my cutoff date, right? I have to make Halloween, which means technically I need to be done with the game by September. Because then, I can go through, if there's an approval process or there's bug testing, things like that. That will happen through September. I also need time to come up with all the other stuff because in addition to just getting my game on Steam, I also want to take full advantage of everything else Steam lets you do. I want emoticons, I want trading cards, I want achievements. I have to come up with all that stuff. Which means in the case of emoticons and achievements, or not emoticons and trading cards, I need to come up with artwork for that. And I have some artwork already. In the Discord chat me and my friends hang out in, one of them had me clip out some sprite art of Dracula as our Discord channel emotes, and they're really good, and I really can't wait to share that with people on Steam. And I'm also really curious about how much money that will make me, because Jim Sterling has talked about these Russian developers or whatever that get deliberately crummy games through Steam Greenlight because apparently you make a lot of money on trading card sales and things like that. So even if Overbite isn't this runaway success indie game, as long as I have trading cards, I think I'll still end up making some money on this game. And, it's not like a Kickstarter where I'm on the hook with investors or whatever. Everything I put into Overbite is my own sweat and blood and effort, except for the music, of course. But, there's I guess what I'm trying to say is that it'll technically be all pure profit as soon as I get it on Steam. But yeah, rest of December is for me. I'll charge up my creative batteries, and then in January it's game development time. Of course, I say I'm charging my batteries up here in December, and that's not entirely true. As always, I can't stop making stuff. It's lately, I think I mentioned this maybe a month or two ago, I'm working on a script for a new video, a new Better Late Than Never video. This time it'll be about Nights into Dreams on I almost said the Dreamcast, but it'll be the Sega Saturn. If I'm getting a little loopy and a little rambly and a little ranty or whatever, it is now 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm getting tired. So, sleepiness, this is what happens. But anyway, new Better Late Than Never video coming soon. I've been writing this script for a Nights into Dreams video for a long time, actually, which is actually turning into kind of a problem. Because the script for this video is getting kind of big. Part of what I want to do with this Nights video is kind of retool Better Late Than Never video games into sort of more like a retrospective series than a video review. There will still be critical content in the Better Late Than Never brand or whatever, but this specific video will be a little more like documentary style. Basically, I've been watching a lot of The Gaming Historian, and there's this other YouTube channel called Ahoy. I really don't know what else they'll call it. I think it's under you go youtube.com/Xbox Ahoy. Xbox Ahoy is all one word. Here, let me actually double check and make sure that actually goes somewhere. Yes, that is his channel, and yes, it is just called Ahoy. But he does all these like really cool, really in-depth, like classic game retrospectives, mostly like first-person shooters. He did one on Doom about 10 months ago that is really good. It's like an hour long, and he did another one on Quake like 6 months ago. That's another hour-long video. They are super, super good, super well edited, super well written. They're just these like really amazing retrospective / documentaries about how these games got made, the climate they got made in, why they are the way they are, their legacy, etc., etc., etc. And that's kind of what this Knights video is turning into. So, it's getting to be a rather big script. I'm at about 5 pages long. I think it's about 2,500 words, which is quite a bit. I was hoping to cover like the entire Knights franchise, by which I mean Nights into Dreams on the Saturn, and then Journey of Dreams on the Wii. But with it being so long already, this 5-page script, those 5 pages only cover the Sega Saturn release and a little bit about its ports. The PlayStation 2 version and the Xbox Live Arcade / PSN version that came out in HD. That is, that's the 5 pages right there. So if I did end up going and talking about like Journey of Dreams and whatever, we're probably looking at like another 4 or 5 pages on the script. And the idea of doing another, half an hour long video is a little scary to me right now after, the year I spent on my How to Fix Sonic video. How to Fix Sonic. So, if I do cover Journey of Dreams, it will have to be in a separate second video. So, this Knights video, I don't know when it's coming out. I'd like it to be by the end of the month. I need to finish the script yet. I'm reaching the end of that, and then I need to shoot all my footage, record all my narration, and then splice it all together. And who knows how long that'll take. Like, the actual capturing, writing, and recording part of all this, that is now the easy part. The hard part is everything else around it now. It's all the motion graphics. It's all the artwork, which, I don't know if I can do artwork anymore. My scanner is busted. It doesn't work on Windows 10. I've mentioned this before. So any artwork that I make for a video, it's hard to scan it in and get it into a video. So, I don't know, that's a bridge I'll have to cross when we get there. And hopefully we'll get there before the end of December. But you know how I am when it comes to scheduling. This Knights video could come out in July. And it better not come out in July because I need to work on Overbite after a certain point. So, if it comes to that, if it comes to January and I'm still working on this Knights video, assuming we're not dealing with like a sunk cost fallacy situation where, I'm saying I can't stop this now because I'm in too deep, I might just cancel this video so I can work on Overbite. But those are the 2 main creative things for me for this month. Now I guess we move on to general entertainment consumption for the month. And boy, have I been busy. This podcast comes right off the heels of me watching the Redline movie again. If you've never seen Redline is super good. It is an anime movie from, what year was it? Like 2013, 2011? I'm checking on Wikipedia right now. 2009. It is a Japanese anime motion picture film for movie theaters. And it's not really like a complex movie. I know you say like, oh, it's anime. And you think of anime and you think like over-sexualization and like really navel-gazing psychology and metaphysics and all like this weird stuff. Like anime kind of jumped up its own butt at a certain point. And Redline isn't that. Redline has some content in it that is probably not suitable for children. We'll say that much. But it's a pretty simple story. We'll say it is a very easily digestible story, and I think that just it's a statement on that not all movies need to be super complex. You think of like all these crazy blockbuster movies like Indiana Jones and gosh, I don't even know what, like Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, all these movies, they're not complex movies at their hearts. They're actually fairly simple. A group of people goes to a theme park breaks down, they have to escape before they die. That's Jurassic Park, and that's really simple. Jurassic Park has, deeper values in the middle of that, like, genetic engineering and playing God and this, that, and the other thing, but, I think a lot of the best movies probably have like a really simple, really easily understandable core to them. And Redline is a very simple, easy to understand story. It's kind of just like a sports movie about a race driver trying to win a race while also being like chased by the mob or whatever. It just also happens that this race is in this crazy sci-fi anime future, and all of his opponents are like these weird looking aliens. It's kind of like if you took F-Zero, the video game, and made a movie about that, but like also cooler than that. It's more stylish than that. You don't have Captain Falcon with the helmet. You have this kind of rockabilly punk guy called Sweet JP. He's the hero of the movie, and he's got this big like pompadour, and he drives this really like souped up futuristic Trans Am. And it is such a cool movie. It is probably one of my favorite movies. It's up there like top 5, at very least top 10. I love this movie to pieces. It is like, I love this movie so much that it actually, like, watching it kind of makes me a little bit emotional sometimes. Like, that's kind of a weird thing for me to admit, because like I know Redline isn't really like this emotional movie. It's not super dramatic, and in fact, at some points it almost doesn't really like make sense. It's very chaotic, but nonetheless, there are parts about it that are like really like genuinely beautiful, and I get like weird and emotional when I see it sometimes. But that's a good thing. That just means I really love this movie like so much. The style, the animation, the music, it is just... I think I'm going to use Redline music for the intro and outro of this podcast. You've probably already heard a Redline song here at the beginning, and you'll probably hear one at the end. If you haven't seen Redline, watch it. Watch it in HD, watch it with all the lights turned off, watch it with the sound cranked up. Envelop yourself in this movie. It deserves it. And in saying that, I know that, like, I'm setting kind of impossible expectations for Redline, but, don't go into this thinking that this movie will change your life or anything like that. But, still watch it. It is, I think, a very good movie. I love Redline. I love Redline so much. Game-wise, I've been making the most of my December and late November. All the stuff I wanted to do while I was working on Overbite, now I'm finally doing it. Now I'm playing video games again, and it feels really good. I finished Doom 3 from a save file I started back in like 2011, which is weird. Like, you think about that, I still had that save file from like somewhere in the middle of the game, and I picked it back up and I finished it. Doom 3 is not a good game. Like, not even close to a good game. And I don't really know what compelled me to finish it either, because after a certain point, I knew I wasn't really enjoying it, but I think I knew that I was also, like, getting close to the end of the game, so I just figured I'd ride it out, I guess. I mean, I think it was still probably staying interesting, and I think a lot of that has to do with the way I played it. I played it through this mod called Sick Mod, S-I-K-K mod, Sick Mod. That, enhances the visuals and adds all these, like, gameplay tweaks. And, I tweaked all the gameplay to something that, was a little more enjoyable than probably vanilla Doom 3. But, it wasn't a good game. It wasn't, like, I could just sit here for the next hour just repeating it wasn't a good game, and that would probably be more enjoyable than playing Doom 3. Well, that's an exaggeration, but there are so many problems in Doom 3, like enemies teleporting into your room like clowns filing out of a clown car. Like, you're just standing in the same hallway while one enemy at a time comes down this hallway at you, one after another after another. Spiders filing out of vents over and over again, and they don't move more than a foot because they come out of the vent and they instantly get shot and they instantly die. And then another spider comes out of the vent and they get shot and they instantly die. And this happens over and over and over again for like 5 minutes. And I'm not in any danger of anything other than maybe running out of ammo. And even though I was playing this on veteran difficulty, which is this, it's the highest non-nightmare mode difficulty, I had plenty of ammo. I had ammo coming out of my ears at certain points in that game. And it was just, the monsters aren't scary. There's not enough of them to be threatening. The environments, that game is trying so hard to be Half-Life, the original Half-Life, and it is a bad Half-Life. And the story is just, it's nonsense. There's this guy called Betruger, and, for some reason he wants to open a portal to hell. He never says why he wants to open a portal to hell. He just does. I think if you read supplemental material, like email logs or something in the expansion, it says, maybe he was possessed by a demon. But beyond that, getting this story bit in the expansion pack that came out almost a year after the main game, there's no motivation for why the bad guy is a bad guy and why he wants to, open a portal to hell and go to hell and, buddy up with all these demons or whatever. And then, like, the whole crux of this plot, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for you, spoilers here for the main, like, crux of what he's trying to do, this Betruger guy. He wants you, the player, to call for help so that Marines come from Earth to Mars, and then his plan is him and his demon buddies will hijack the spaceships from Mars and go back to Earth. And the entire time I'm sitting there thinking, why is this a good plan? The Marines will probably fly like 1 or 2 or 3 ships up to Mars. There'll probably be like a dozen Marines that file out of this thing. And he wants to take a dozen demons back to Earth. Like, that's going to do anything? That hatch is going to open. And his 12 or 20 demons or whatever are going to pile out. And the entire military of planet Earth is going to make them a stain. It is the most nonsense thing. And then you get to that game's final boss, and the final boss feels like a mistake. Like, I stumbled into the final boss arena by accident. I beat the final boss in a single hit, and the entire ending was just a cliffhanger to set up the expansion pack. And there's just no words for how bad that last hour of the game felt because of that. What a terrible game. Do not play Doom 3, is what I'm saying. Because it is garbage. It is junk. Anyway, I also played Jazzpunk. I beat Jazzpunk in a single sitting, in fact. Jazzpunk, contrary to Doom 3, is a great game. It is a funny game, too. It's a comedy game. It's almost like playing a video game version of The Naked Gun or one of the Hot Shots movies, or like, something by Mel Brooks. It's one of those kind of comedy movies. It's sort of a parody, but it's the kind of parody where it stands on its own, I guess, right? Because you think of a movie like Airplane with Leslie Nielsen, and that is a parody of a very specific movie. You can go out there and you can find a comparison video that shows, the movie that Airplane was originally based on. It's this 1950s movie. I don't remember the name, but the plot of Airplane follows this old 1950s movie exactly. And the 1950s black and white movie is played, straight and serious and whatever else. And Airplane is this big send-up. It's this big parody of this movie. It's a parody of a lot of different other things, but it still works outside of the context of being a parody, right? And that's exactly what Jazzpunk is. It's this ridiculous game where you're this kind of almost like mercenary for hire, kind of. You take jobs from your boss, and funny things happen. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it is a great game. It is perfect, almost. It is probably about as perfect as a comedy game can be. Every joke landed for me, and the game's length is, again, just perfect. I said I finished it in about a single sitting. I think it was maybe like 3 hours long, and it was one of those games where it ended at exactly the moment where I sat there and I started to think, how long is this going to go on? And then the moment that thought crossed my head, I was basically in the game's final level. It is brilliantly paced. It is hilariously funny. I cannot say enough good things about Jazzpunk right now. If you play Jazzpunk, just, click on everything, hit on everything, and just enjoy how silly and stupid that game is. And, how much it makes you feel funny. Here, I'll spoil one thing for you. There's this part where you enter this shop, and it's full of all these vases, right? Vases or whatever. And this lady comes running up to you, and she's like, "Oh no, there's all these flies. Please get rid of the flies." And if you want, you can run around and you can swat at these flies with a fly swatter and leave the place without breaking a single pot. And, that's cool and all. But what you really want to do is you want to run around and you want to smash every pot, because that's funny. And she says all these funny things when you're smashing the pots. And if you smash every pot in the room, in the store, you get an achievement for it. And it really makes you feel like you're Leslie Nielsen, I guess, in one of the Naked Gun movies or in Airplane, where you're just this kind of goofy idiot who's running around wrecking everything, running around being stupid, running around making all the jokes, being all the punchlines and everything, and still come out of it feeling cool about yourself. That's the kind of game Jazzpunk is. So yeah, play it. Play Jazzpunk if you haven't already played Jazzpunk. I finally finished A Link to the Past, The Legend of Zelda for the Super Nintendo. I started that, it was either earlier this year or late last year. And it ended up where I got, so busy on the Sonic video and rebuilding my computer that, I fell off the wagon playing that game. I was either the last dungeon or the next to the last dungeon or whatever like that. So, now that I was free, I figured, I'll pick it back up, I'll finish it. And you think of modern Zelda games like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Spirit Tracks, and those are really easy games. They are not... Zelda hasn't been difficult for a long time. I think the last time I played Wind Waker, I died once in the entire game. I don't think I ever even died at all in Twilight Princess. In Link to the Past, those last two dungeons, I'd bring 4 jars with 4 fairies in them, and I'd run out of fairies. I'd get a game over. Because it's that kind of hard game. And I think I ended up... It tells you when the credits roll how many times you got a game over. And throughout the entire course of playing A Link to the Past, I got a game over 19 times. And the 19 times figure doesn't count how many times a fairy revives you. So in actuality, it was probably a lot more like, I died in that game like 30 or 40 times, because Link to the Past is a surprisingly difficult game, especially compared to contemporary Zelda, I guess. And now all I keep thinking about is, I hope Breath of the Wild kind of goes back and makes it a more difficult Zelda game again. It kind of looks like it does, because it has all these, this crazy, big world and all these interactions and everything else. And you see videos of, people playing at E3, and it actually looks like, they're in danger of dying a lot. So, hopefully Breath of the Wild is difficult like Link to the Past is, because Link to the Past is still a really good game. There was another reason I decided to go back and beat Link to the Past, is because also, during Black Friday, I found somewhere selling Ocarina of Time 3D for the 3DS for $16, and I figured, you know what? For a long time now, I've kind of been in the mood to go back and replay Ocarina of Time, so, I'll spend the $16 and buy that game, and, I'm about, we'll say, an hour in, maybe two. I'm heading up to Death Mountain to, go deal with the Gorons, and I think maybe, the Fire Temple. Something really interesting about Ocarina of Time is, again, contrasting it with modern Zelda. You think of a game like Twilight Princess and how many hours and hours and hours it takes for that game to get going. And you play Ocarina of Time, and you're in the first dungeon in 15 minutes, 10 minutes. It's nuts. It feels so streamlined. The game is moving so fast compared to Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. I'm really enjoying that aspect. I think part of the problem with modern Zelda is that it takes too long to get going. Those games feel like you're trudging through molasses. And Ocarina of Time 3D feels refreshingly brisk. They're pushing you along to get a move on. They're not really wasting your time too much. And I really appreciate that. I'm really enjoying that so far. It's nice to play a Zelda that feels snappy, right? And I'd say, Ocarina of Time feels snappy compared to, Twilight Princess or whatever. This podcast is running a little bit long, so, we'll just quickly run through everything else I played. I played a few hours of Skyrim. That was pretty alright. I probably need to go back to Skyrim, because I was enjoying my time with it. There was an Overwatch free weekend. I had some fun with that. I kind of want to buy Overwatch, but, it's not on Steam. It rarely goes on sale. Even, for the free weekend, Overwatch went on sale, and it went on sale for, $30, down from $40. And that's not really a sale price. That's a Nintendo sale price, right? They're oh, we're having this big Black Friday sale. Here's Super Mario 3D Land for 10% off. That's the kind of sales that Blizzard has. They're not very good. So even though I want Overwatch, I probably won't buy Overwatch. $30 for a multiplayer-only game? No, especially when it has free-to-play hooks in it. It is a game that you buy into, you pay for, and then they expect you to keep paying for forever. And nope, nada. I ain't buying into that. I played some Devil Daggers. I'm not entirely sure I like that game. You'd think it would be right up my alley, being this high-score challenge arcade sort of game. But the difficulty in Devil Daggers just ramps up a little too quickly, and then, you get into this big long run to where even just replaying the first 30 seconds feels like this chore that I don't really like. It is overall a really frustrating game to play, I think. So I don't think I really like Devil Daggers that much. I like the aesthetic, I like the music, I like the concept. I don't really like playing it. I put a few minutes into the game adaptation of Manos, The Hands of Fate. That's a pretty alright game. It's easy to assume that, because it's this NES pixel art style game, that it would, maybe it's not very good. It looks a little cheap and budget and a little too deliberately indie, I guess you'd say. Like, it's not trying very hard in general, but it's actually a pretty alright game. It's got some nice mechanics to it. It plays the aesthetic really well. For the $1 or $2 I probably paid for it on Humble Bundle, good enough. Played some Brutal Doom 64. That's pretty good. Usually I don't like the Brutal Doom formula when it's applied to, like, vanilla Doom. It feels a little too self-aware. It feels a little too over the top. It feels kind of like it's spoiling the magic of what makes the original Doom feel so good. But when it comes to Doom 64, I don't really have that kind of reverence for Doom 64. So to put all these new systems on, to put all these enhanced visuals on, it doesn't feel like that much of an affront. It actually ends up feeling like pretty good. My only problem with Brutal Doom 64 is that, true enough, it is a pretty brutal game. All the enemies, how much damage they do to the player has been tweaked. So, wimpy enemies that you don't really feel are very threatening, they kind of kick your butt in Brutal Doom 64. And you end up with a lot of them, like lost souls. 1 or 2 lost souls, if you're not quick on the draw, they'll kick your butt in Brutal Doom 64, when normally, they're kind of like nothing enemies. So, whatever. Actually, Brutal Doom 64 is the last thing I have listed on this podcast. I think I probably played, more games this month. I bought Sonic 2 3D. I know I played some of that, but you don't need me to talk to you about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's a good 3D conversion, of course, because M2 does amazing 3D conversions, but besides that, it's just Sonic 2. Sonic 2 is a good game. You don't need me to tell you that. So with that, I guess we'll finally bring this podcast to a close. We're over an hour in runtime. So yeah, definitely need to close this podcast. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you guys in 2017, which seems like a weird thing to say. And we'll see what happens with Overbite. 2017 will be the year of Overbite. Get excited, everyone. Or, don't? I don't know. It's hard to take the room temperature on Overbite, but it'll be a different game than the one you played on Itch.io, let's say. I have plans to expand and change things up and hopefully make it a better, less confusing experience, let's say. So, I'll see you guys then. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is you celebrate. Have fun, relax, be with family, and bye-bye.
Right before the sunrise, one thing is on my mind. Need to take the stress and throw it all away. Feelings to discover, knowing undercover what it is you really mean to me. You are the flower, I'm the rain. Without you, life is not the same. I'm everything you'll ever need. Though rarely spoken, we still proceed.